All right. Wow. That intro gets me
I
stoked
know that
every
was
time.
intense. I'm like, still, my heart needs a second just to calm down after that.
The pregame room is like so chill, and like the podcast is so chill, but the intro gets you stoked, which I kind of
Yeah.
love, honestly. Well, hey, Jonathan, welcome to Conversations with
Thank
Jack. Really
you.
appreciate you jumping on today.
No, it's exciting. I'm excited to just like chat with you and to we'll see where we are in the cosmos.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I guess like just first, do you mind giving folks a quick intro and telling everyone sort of like where a little bit more about you and what is Lavana?
Sure. So I'm Jonathan Caras. I'm head of communications at Levana. I have been involved in high tech for, I don't know, I guess since I was a little kid, if you count like programming on a TI-82 calculator, like, the simple games, that counts as high tech, I think. But,
Did
more
you
recent,
play which of the TI-86 calculator games did you play?
no, I had a TI-82. So
A TI-82. I had an
I'm
83. Sorry. Yeah,
Well, so we had so in middle school in sixth grade, I had an 82, and then I upgraded to the 83 plus at some point, which
the 83
was
plus.
yeah, I was super excited. So I
Did
mean, I
you have
played
any games on yours?
for sure. I mean, I wrote a bunch of the basic games like Snake, Drug
Yeah,
Wars. I wrote an RPG with like like a convoluted storyline.
Drug
We
Wars
played,
was a classic.
yeah,
That one went through my school like wildfire.
absolutely, absolutely. And then there was like the Mario knockoffs, platformers that were written in
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah,
But
yeah.
you needed to like write those in assembly in order to get it because the basic was real-time compilation or runtime compilation, I mean. And so it just didn't have the performance to be able to do anything with like complex updates like a parallax background screen, so that was beyond my I guess like 11-year-old self to do that. But yeah, I learned a lot about game design, a lot about project management, from just building calculator games and then later web projects.
Awesome. Um,
So I mean, I can keep going. I got into mobile development very early on. I had early access to the iPhone SDK. I built a company around there. Had about 12 employees. Built a successful mobile development studio. Sold it in 2012. Patented some of the tech. Built a video streaming company that was very successful. Sold that in 2015. Then built a AI fashion company before AI was even a term. It's called Screenshop. We ended up exiting to Snapchat in 2018, and then started a crypto hedge fund with some investors.
and was that like recommendations for shopping stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we had a couple million users. So throughout this whole experience, I've built or been a seat at the table of multiple projects that have gotten millions of monthly active users. So coming into the crypto space, it's almost painful to see how many tools that are just like commonplace within Web 2 are just missing, and just not even in the thought process of product design and user onboarding within Web3, and how many things that we as Web3 natives just take for granted, in the design process and in communication. I think NFT is a perfect example of that. The fact that it's even called, an NFT, it could have been called a collectible. It could have been called like, a digital collectible. I don't know. It could have been called something where the person who heard it wouldn't have gone like, WTF, what is that?
Yeah.
But we're full, from browser extensions to seed phrases, to bridges and all of these UI friction points. It really is a testament to how powerful and useful the underlying technology is, and the limited use cases that we have today. I know that we're onto something, because if the UX in any other industry was this bad, there's no way that we would have the adoption that we have
No,
today.
none. Yeah, I think, one of the things I really like about your background is you've seen a number of exponentially growing technologies and been a part of them as an entrepreneur and a developer from an early stage. And I think that, you know, I saw a little bit of the cloud revolution, and that's sort of like where my background is. But I've worked with, and at Strangelove, we've got a number of folks with sort of similar Web 2 backgrounds. And I think everyone from Web 2 that comes into Web 3 kind of has this similar culture shock moment where they're like, wait, we've already done this a bunch of times before. There's tons of learnings. Why don't we just try to do some of the things that we know that work? And it's kind of funny to see the industry come back to those things and like relearn those things again in real time. Um, Funny and frustrating, I guess.
Absolutely. It was amazing to see. So Lavana is deployed on two chains right now, Osmosis and Say, and we will be deploying, God willing, by the end of the month on Injective. And it's been just a really interesting experience to kind of see, um, both of those launches, and they both had struggles with user acquisition. Today we launched about 2 months ago. We've had almost $100 million of trading volume, with 99% of that being on Osmosis and like 1% of that being on Say, and seeing kind of the what it takes to get a dedicated customer, and Jatan, the FOMO around not learning enough about Levana is real. I'm not sure how to interpret that sentence, but it sounds like a compliment. So
Bullish.
yeah,
Bullish.
yeah. And so it is, you know, it's important to figure out how you get your first 1,000 customers, and to even have that mindset of like that a user of a protocol is a customer, which means that the protocol has to serve a purpose. Lavana doesn't have a token, and the Lavana intends to have a token at some point, but it needs to be after there's product market fit. It needs to be after that there's a successful flywheel, that there's the ability to acquire customers for solving a real customer pain, whether if that's hedging, if that's perpetuals, whatever that is. What the core at what Levana does is provide 30x. It was really three things: 30x leverage, long or short, for directional traders; high APR for liquidity providers, like we're right now. You can deposit Bitcoin into Levana and earn over 60% APR paid out in Bitcoin, single sided with no impermanent loss. And then it's also a good method for or hedging or arbitrage opportunities. So that's kind of like the medium risk. So you can degen with high risk on Levana. You can be an LP and just get high APR at relatively low risk, or you can do kind of this middle ground, where you do arbitrage opportunities or actively manage positions and then collect funding rates. So these three aspects kind of appeal to different users within the space, and the messaging and communication and onboarding and education for each of these use cases is very different.
Yeah.
And on a blockchain, depending upon the life cycle of the blockchain, Say is at the very beginning and has really struggled to get an active user base on chain since the launch. And then Osmosis, which is very successful at growing, but is kind of at like a late stage cycle. So there's, they're not, it's a mature product that they already kind of have their customers that are kind of set in their ways of doing their activities. So both of these ecosystems present challenges. And then there's Injective, which is a chain really focused on leverage trading, which we're really excited to deploy to, because it's I'm optimistic that it's a larger audience that's already familiar with the core use case that Levana provides. So
I want to
it's just,
just
yep.
circle back a little bit. The theme that I'm hearing between the three different products that you build is like more efficient markets.
Yep,
Things like shorting, leverage, the ability to do this arbitrage for all kinds of different market participants. This is why traditional financial markets are a lot more efficient than the ones that we see in crypto. It's incredibly hard to go short in a lot of ecosystems on different things. And that ability to bet against is extremely important to efficient markets. Also, leverage. You can have a large trader that is able to throw their weight around, and without leverage, there's no way to really counterbalance that. But with leverage, it allows smaller traders to successfully bet against larger traders and still be able to operate on a level playing field. Obviously, there's a huge amount of risk there. DYOR, this isn't financial advice. But these tools that Lavana is bringing to the ecosystem have been badly missing and are really needed. That's like kind of like one thing that I really hear out of your first point. And then the second thing is a little bit more on this nitty gritty finding product market fit and finding users. So in the Web 2 era, the way that we talked about this was like ship and iterate, build the features for your users, figure out which ones work. And what I hear you doing in crypto is kind of the same thing. You have three core products that you're working on. You've got a
Well,
few
it's
different,
one product. It's one core
yeah,
product, but
it's
it
one
can be
core
used
product, but
with three different use cases.
yes, there's three different use cases that you're trialing to figure out where the product market fit is for your core product. And you're also trying a number of different distribution strategies in seeing where the users that you can activate are. And you've done the say, you've done osmosis, you're going to go do injective. I would imagine as other chains come out, you'll probably try to deploy there too. Do you want to talk a little bit about finding product market fit and sort of like how the process that you're going through is one that you've seen in Web 2 as well?
Absolutely. So the most important thing is just to talk to users. So we've had over the last 2 months, we've had an opportunity to interview about 200 different users of the protocol, which if you just look at it on, a day-to-day basis, I don't, I don't work on Saturdays, but the rest of the 7 days of the week um, is, it's taking, as many calls as people are willing to book. And it's a lot of just cold outreach, a lot of just saying to people on Telegram, like, hey, I'll give you $10 if you'll, take a look at this website and tell me what you think of it. And then just watch them sometimes painfully. I've had plenty of calls where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe how bad this is, where because if you think about it, there's a lot of paradigm shifts or new terminology or mental models that are required to really onboard within the Cosmos ecosystem that are not standard practice within the rest of crypto. And it's definitely not standard practice within the traditional e-commerce or TradeFi ecosystem. Things like the fact that you might that Cosmos is not a blockchain; it's a collection of blockchains. That bridging can put you in situations where you had gas in one ecosystem and then now you've moved to another ecosystem which felt very close because it used the same wallet, or it was within the same, let's say, fanboy ecosystem, but yet now you're stuck without gas tokens and you might not even realize that. Even from the fact that you might have used 50 different blockchains in the past, all through one wallet, such as MetaMask, and then now you're being asked to create another wallet, and it's another wallet that you're not familiar with and has a different UX.
Well, MetaMask support for Cosmos here.
Yep, yeah. So this is very exciting. Well, it is. I like to think of myself as an iPhone S user. iPhone likes to iterate. They'll make like the iPhone 4 and they'll make the 4S. They'll make the iPhone 12, the 12S. So the S model is like where they got to really polish a lot of the elements that weren't in the first version. So if we look at MetaMask Snaps, which is a phenomenal tool that I think is going to really open up many different use cases, both for Bitcoiners and for Cosmos cosmonauts and beyond, is it's still lacking a lot of the user flow that users are used to. Primarily in terms of what is the asset management and basic swapping features that are found within wallets today. Those don't exist within the first version of Snaps. So you still have a significant degradation in the quality of the user experience, going from an Arbitrum or Optimism or Binance Smart Chain user experience with MetaMask to now using osmosis with Uniswap. But I think we're probably a few months away from having all of these fixed. What Lavana did recently was, with a number of non-Cosmos users, is we watched them onboard into the Cosmos space, and we saw the friction points that they encountered and the new things. And we even paid some of them. Just, I'll give you $100 if you can figure out how to put $10 into this app. And people sat, and some people it took them half an hour, some people it took them 4 hours, but it was clearly a number of steps. And what my vision for Levana is very simple, and it's very Web 2 focused. Is that or a user comes to Levana, they sign in with their Gmail, they, if they have a Bitcoin, if they have Bitcoin already, great. If they have MetaMask and they have Ethereum, also great. They just deposit whatever asset that they want to use from whatever wallet they're currently using, and then they decide. And then now we've gotten past the onboarding friction, and now we can get to what type of user are you, and how do you want to use it.
One other thing that I want to zero in on for folks that aren't really getting this is the sign in with Google, which is kind of key. Because I think in doing user acquisition for some, this is something we've run into over in Ethereum, the tooling for figuring out who owns a wallet, being able to contact them, being able to go do those user interviews, figure out what's wrong with your product. Those things are tooling for that is okay. It's like Web 1.5 level. It's definitely not Web 2 level. But if you get users to sign in with Google, you can use the entire suite of A/B testing tooling and all this fun stuff that has been developed for Web 2 to help nurture those customers, get that feedback directly from those users, know who your users are, and start building those relationships a little bit more. And that's kind of a big missing piece of what we have in Cosmos. Just, yeah, want to hear your thoughts
And
on that a
and,
little bit
and
too.
I think from a tech perspective, we're finally at the point where multi-party computation can have proper seed management, which
Yeah,
then protects the user, ensures that there is that their seed is recoverable, and ensures that it's private, that the that the devs can't get access to their wallet, that it's not custodial, that that they own a portion of the key, which only they have, and so therefore nobody else can mess around with their funds, because if it's not your keys, it's not your coins. So I think as we've solved this critical part of the key management or the seed management, it really is up to the builders to embrace these types of tools, which is also, I think, challenges a lot of the wallet creators to adopt to these new services.
yeah. And also app creators too. Like you guys have integration work to do as well.
Absolutely, and I think that one of the beautiful things that we've done at Levana is, we're survivors of Terra, and we've built a method of creating perpetual swaps that has no requirement for stablecoins. So that means that we could actually we can build. There's no reason. There's no need for necessarily for swapping. There's no need for an external AMM. There's no need for large amounts of liquidity of stablecoins. We can use stablecoins to create synthetic, derivative-like assets, but it's not a requirement for the perpetual swap. And I think that that's the reason why we've been able to succeed on Cosmos, where many other perpetual swaps have struggled, just because of even with the introduction of Noble USDC, which I think is a huge boon for the Cosmos ecosystem. It's still going to take time for applications to integrate to it. There still is it's very dispersed between, Axelar and Tether and Noble USDC, and all of this is kind of like we're waiting for kind of the dust to
We've got
settle.
Wormhole coming in as well.
Yep.
And, I think that comment around waiting for the dust to settle is fairly critical because some of your huge onboarding pain has been moving assets from other ecosystems and wallet transfers. Like having people install a new wallet is a pain point. And Axelar recently slashed their bridge fees. Now that they have competition, it's no longer $60 a transfer. It's now much, much cheaper. Because we've got Wormhole now, and we're going to have a couple of other IBC directly over to Ethereum coming soon. And the combination of that with MetaMask does promise a much nicer switching experience for a class of user that has been unable to access the Cosmos so far.
And I wouldn't call it a switching experience. And it's the same way. Again, let's come back to
what would you call it? Not a switching experience.
Just it's an opportunity for onboarding. Like, would you,
Yeah.
It's like if I was to tell you, oh, you were using a social network that was built on Amazon Web Service, and now you're using a social network that's built on Google Cloud Service. Would you actually, in your mind, consider that it's like, oh, I switched infrastructure providers? No, you're focused on the application layer. I think that we've seen that the FAT protocol thesis is dead. It has no.
Yeah.
If the value capture is going to be, on the friend tech level or on the DYDX level, because that's actually what's providing the the value driver and able to collect fees and then distribute those fees, then nobody really cares about what the underlying infrastructure is.
Yeah. I mean, this has always been my thesis with IBC, is that it needs to fade into the background. It needs to be an implementation detail, and users need to not really care that they're using it, and it just needs to work. And I think that, yeah, you're right. The different bridges and things, like, it provides a better onboarding environment for applications that are actually owning that end user experience. And this is going to look a lot more like the Web 2 world, which I happen to agree with.
And it's nice if you want, and what we're doing right now is, we're preparing for the next bull run. That's all you can do in the bear market. You try and not go bankrupt. You try and not get rugged or rug anybody else, and you just you just polish the product until it's like smooth like butter. And I think I just mixed a bunch of metaphors, but you get the point. And you have to pick what is your,
I think the older you get, the more liable to mix metaphors you are. And I found myself doing it more and more. Maybe it coincides with the first kid too. I don't know, but mixing metaphors, it's a dad thing.
Agree at this point. Yeah. And the youngest one is like, oh, my dad works for Bitcoin,
Yeah.
It's interesting is that, you also need to think about when you're communicating to a user, what is the value driver of your product? So I can, not myself, I do communication, so I practice this a lot, but Lavana has to decide what are the main, communication points. Is it that, oh, we're built on Cosmos? Oh, we're built on Osmosis or these other chains? Oh, we are, we are well funded. We prevent insolvency. Or is it just, hey, you have Bitcoin? Did you know you can lend your Bitcoin trustlessly to traders and you can earn 60% APR on it? And you can't get rugged, or at least we hope you can't get rugged. Make sure you sign the terms of service here. And that's so you have to really focus on what is the selling point that's going to get somebody to say, hey, I have Bitcoin, I want to earn 60% APR. And then they're willing to come over and then try your product. And then you have to make it that it's so simple. One of the things that my father told me, and he is, he's alive and well, so I don't mean that as a, as a foreboding message, but one of the things that he's always told me, because as an entrepreneur, is that the easiest part of any business is the customer giving you money, because there's a million reasons for them to not give you money. And so you have to make sure that when they decide
to give you money, they pay for your product.
That's the easiest thing ever. And so that's I think where it comes down to all of the tooling, and where just having a good um, leverage product, and perpetual swaps are have natural product market fit. Future contracts within TradeFi, there's, depending upon how you cut it, it's between 40 for every $1 that is used in the spot market within Wall Street. There's between $40 to $80 which participate in derivatives trading.
Let's just pause there. That's you're saying, and this is accurate, that going to like place a bid, get the actual stock back is 2% or less of the volume of the futures markets in the
Exactly.
traditional finance world.
Yep.
I don't think people really fully understand how much larger that is. It's like 1 to 2 orders of magnitude larger in this futures world. And that's why you see DYDX doing such insane numbers. Like they were posting regularly $1 billion volume days. It's because they're the largest futures market in crypto.
Absolutely.
And that's what perpetuals are.
And I mean, even so Lavana is live on Osmosis for 2 months, and we're already significantly outperforming many of the markets on Osmosis. And
Yeah.
just because that's the nature of the product, and the way that we succeeded that others
Leverage.
failed was, yeah, exactly. That's the beauty of leverage, is that we the way we succeeded where others failed is we removed a lot of the significant barriers that other products had. We simplified the UI significantly so that it was easier to onboard. But still, even with that, it's been very hard to gain any adoption. And I think that we see it's very easy for blockchains when they launch to to just fall on their face, and just forget how much of a gap there is from getting a bunch of fanboys on Twitter, which 99% is bots anyways, to getting those to actually be real humans that are actually trading and doing economic activity on your chain. And there's many new blockchains that launch that just become ghost towns.
Yeah.
And so it's
I mean, I
really,
think that that's the majority of blockchains that launch.
yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And building a strong community is very key. Lavana has been through many ups and downs with her community. We had built a vibrant GameFi community on Terra, and when we had to scale that down about a year ago, and then eventually just shut it down because there's no GameFi market, it essentially killed our whole community, and we had to rebuild
Yeah.
really everything
Rebuilt
from
from
scratch.
scratch.
And that was an amazingly painful, but yet an amazing learning experience for the team.
It's one of the things that I've noticed with the Terra teams is that there was a lot more folks in Terra with this sort of traditional Web 2 background who, I like to think of this as the right way to build and launch products. With this sort of like iterative, better approach than just sort of like build it and hope they will come. Terra had a lot of those folks, and that was why Terra was successful. And then, during the downturn, all of those people just doubled down, just like you did, on this exact same methodology, and it's leading you back out of this horrible crash into a place where you've rebuilt the user base, you're on the road to product market fit with this core product you have, and looking to expand that. And it's really cool to see. And I think it's a great example of like how the right way to do software development works in reality as a business. And yeah.
Yeah, and the best advice that I have is just to talk to both the people that currently use the product and the people that you want to use the product, because you're
Yeah.
gonna, we're so myopic. We have such blinds on. We have such rose-colored glasses. Things are so simple. It's like little things, and I'm so jaded from the product. Like it's like I'll tell you, even coming and like let me just share the screen for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
So can you see this?
I can't yet. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is Lavana. So there's no order book. So this is the main difference between Levana and DYDX. So Levana is designed to just have it be anybody to be able to just deposit and be a liquidity provider without having to run any complicated market maker strategies. Levana is actually an acronym for leverage any asset. So we have everything segregated. The goal is eventually to be able to make permissionless leverage markets, just like how Uniswap invented permissionless spot markets. So even I did a user interview today where I was explaining that, oh, you just deposit Atom, no impermanent loss, single sided, you get 35% APR. You deposit Bitcoin, you get 66% APR. And he said, yeah, but I don't want the impermanent loss. And I said, but there is no impermanent loss. He said, well, why do you have it /USD? I said, well, because that's what the market is denominated in. That doesn't mean there's impermanent loss. He said, well, you have to write on that there's no impermanent loss. And I was like, huh, that's actually true.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm like, okay, but like, then how does it do no impermanent loss?
Exactly. And so it was like
Yeah.
little stuff like that just, hundreds of, I mean, literally thousands of people have seen this screen and, you can see just in terms of the core numbers, that we've grown just organically, to 1.6 million in the liquidity pool size. And this came from with like just no market makers or anything, just community based. And I bet you, and this was something that I realized, is that people don't even know that they're not subject to impermanent loss here because we didn't do a good, because we just took that for granted. So I walked away from this interview, and it was like a 10-minute interview with like a very nice gentleman from Abu Dhabi, and that user interview, I walked away with 6 Jira tickets for the engineering team, and it was just such an amazing experience. And even like little stuff like coming here, and somebody said, why don't you have a bridge button? Like if a person has 0 Atom, why don't you replace this with a deposit Atom, and then they could use a debit card, they could bridge and like walk them through. I was like, huh, that's really great info, is that if there's really no benefit to showing them, oh, you can't do something. So instead of showing in the UI you can't do something, if we know you can't do something, replace it with something that you can do.
Yeah.
So these are like things that hindsight always looks so simple, but if you don't take the time to actually talk to people, then you're never gonna come away with that. So I think that's our process. We're just in the grind, and one of the beautiful one of the beautiful things is that we haven't launched a token yet, so we're not distracted with all of the overhead that is involved with launching a token, and it means that we have more time to focus on initial token distribution to the people that are actually real users of the app, because airdrops are institutionally farmed at this point.
Yeah. One thing that I've always said is that you need to think of airdrops and community token distributions is marketing. And in Web 2, the way it worked is VCs would buy equity from founders, and founders would take the money that VCs gave them and spend it on marketing for their users. And in Web 3, we just skip the middleman and we give the equity directly to the users.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
And if you think about it that way, yeah.
Tokens aren't equity, yada, yada, yada.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Not financial advice. I'm not a lawyer. But I think that is a good mental model. And calling back to something you said earlier, like a lot of these chains launch and then there's just nothing there. And like you're confusing a community of bots on Twitter with actual users on a chain. And they're very different things. The community of users on Twitter wants a token and they want number to go up, and that's all they care about.
Yeah, and they don't want to actually use the product, and
they don't care.
And the challenge is that in many cases, when you over aggressively pursue a large bot run audience, then you end up like royally screwing over the actual humans that
use the product.
sweat, blood, and tears, and like actually helped you grow and things like that. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the worst situation to be in, is that, you know that you had, 500,000 bots, but you really did have like, a few thousand real humans. And today with AI, it's impossible to distinguish the humans from the bots. Like it
Yeah.
really is. Like we've seen, we see spikes, and like, and I know I've spoken to people that, and I've seen like video streams of this where they just have, like a warehouse full of cheap mobile devices that are all simulating human activity just
Yep.
to be eligible for airdrops.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that if you start launching your blockchain and the primary thing that you're launching is a token, you often overfit for token launch in an unhealthy way. And there's a number of sort of like pathologies there that, we've seen with like WorldCoin and Aptos and S3E and a number of other larger projects. And I'm sure everyone uh, has their ones that they can think of. But what gets missed is the launch of the actual developer product and the actual like making sure that there's butts in the seats, i.e., users there to use the products of the developers. And yeah, I think it's kind of wild. Jatin, great comment around the honesty and openness of the team, showing towards the smallest fixes and details. This is the iterative approach to product development, and it is user first. And I think that is like what's coming across loud and clear in this. Do you have 3 core principles behind your product?
Um, it should not. Okay. Yeah. The first one is mobile first. That, everything that
Ooh,
we do, we first
love
start
it.
with the thought that you are on a mobile phone. We've got a warm relationship with, Leap, mobile wallet, and with Kepler, and so we do everything, starting from, the from those products on. I have an iPhone, but we have, Android phones also. So that's the first, because the majority of the world doesn't have access to a desktop. That's just full stop. The majority of the world doesn't have a laptop. The only internet access that they have is through a mobile phone. So if that's the target that you want to go after, you have to be mobile first. The second is that the onboarding needs to be frictionless, and to the point where somebody with no instructions within 30 seconds needs to be able to just, gain value out of your product. And that's, I think, where we're failing today. I don't think that we've done a good job with that. I think that we've done worlds better than anybody else in Cosmos, and most other people in the Ethereum world, but we've got a long way to go. And I don't think we're even holding the bar very high for ourselves. And then the third is to not compromise on security. Like I'll tell you a story. We uh, St Adam.
Jonathan,
Um,
great list of 3. That is top quality right there.
Thank you. So there was a very painful decision that we had to make, which probably cost us hundreds of millions of dollars of trading volume over the next month or two, and that's, but I think it's the right choice to make. And so we had, I can't read this. I can't talk and I can't chew gum and walk at the same time. So I have to, not read the screen. Um, but it's okay. So we had, a problem where St Atom, which is, minted. If you're not familiar with it, Cosmos has this concept of staking, and there's very high rewards. It's about 20% APR on the Atom token. I think I have a lot to say about that, which I'll save for another time. But all of this liquidity within Cosmos, I think it's hundreds of millions of dollars of liquidity, has been stuck in the Cosmos hub. And there's no way to rehypothecate that within a broader DeFi ecosystem. And it's really stifled the the evolution and engagement level of DeFi within Cosmos, I think objectively. And I think that everyone that's in the Cosmos ecosystem is kind of like accepted that today. And it doesn't increase security, but it does decrease usability. And so one of the propositions that went live with Cosmos was to allow for the migration of traditional stake tokens to liquid stake tokens without the need for a 21-day unbonding period as it was previously. So that went live, I believe, yesterday.
Yep.
And so, which is a monumental bull case for Cosmos in general. So there's a lot of very, between stable coins, between MetaMask, between liquid stake tokens. These are all between native Bitcoin coming and wrap Bitcoin coming.
I think
These
the
are all
better bridges to
and
Ethereum is a
wormhole.
huge one.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. So all of this is makes me very bullish on the future of Cosmos because Cosmos gets to fade into the background more.
This is what we built it to do.
Yep, absolutely. And so the problem is that Stride has two ways to detect what's the value, the current market value of an ST Atom token. You can do it through the largest liquidity pool on an AMM, which is the incentivized pool on Osmosis, which has about $9 million of liquidity. But $9 million of the liquidity with outstanding liquidity of hundreds of millions of dollars makes you subject to a flash loan attack. I mean, this is flash loan attack 101 for price manipulation. And even if it's not an on-chain flash loan attack, you get BlackRock, you get Citadel. I've danced this dance before. There's off-chain ways and real world ways to simulate flash loan attacks that are just guaranteed to wreck people. And I'm sure that is going to happen on these liquidity pools over the next 6 months. Yep.
Guaranteed. This is one of those things where there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from what's happened over at Ethereum that we ignore at our own peril.
Yep. And so we've simulated these attack vectors through the oracle price of the shallow liquidity AMMs. So really, the only way to safely detect what is the price of ST Atom is through the redemption rate, which doesn't happen on the same chain that Lavana is currently deployed on, which we're referring to Osmosis. So if you know what a blended exchange rate is for Atom, through something like Pyth, which has lots of complex methodologies around detecting anomalies on various exchanges, identifying attacks, filtering them out. It's got multiple points of failure. It combines TBWAPs with spot prices. There's a lot of complex machinery that's going into how Pyth detects the price of spot Atom and keeps that accurate versus just pulling a price from an AMM, and then if you combine that with what is the redemption rate currently of an ST Atom to Atom through an unbonding period on the Stride chain, then you can safely detect on chain without a trusted third party, or without even needing to provide a price feed yourself, which could be manipulated. We all saw there was the human multi-sig attack from Ronin, the Ronin bridge, if you remember that attack.
Yeah.
So
powerful Lazarus.
Exactly. So North Korea can get involved, or the Democratic People's Republic, and so what we decided is that because the redemption rate cross bridge messaging is not live, it's arguably unethical to just launch based on an inferior oracle where we know exactly how much money it's going to cost to manipulate the price. So it's like if we see that there's an attack vector, we can't just build, even though we know it's going to be a killer product. we have to wait that extra month that it's going to take because Osmosis is a permission chain, and Stride needs to start bridging it over, and then they need to go through governance, and all of that is going to take real world time. And probably competitors are going to come in and they're going to get these prices and everything, but there's not really anything to do about it because we have a long-term vision. Lavana is a 10-year project. It's a 7-year project. It's if we have to wait an extra couple weeks, to do it the right way, then that's what we're going to do.
Awesome. Well, Jonathan, this was a great chat. Thank you very much for joining me today. Really appreciate it. Any last words before we run?
You can get above 60% APR if you deposit Bitcoin into Levana. Not financial advice. It's single-sided with no impermanent loss. It's going to take you a while to onboard, but it's worth it.
And it is real yield.
And it's real yield.
Fees on top. This is not inflationary yield. This is paid to you directly in Bitcoin.
Yep. Axelar wrapped Bitcoin, So
Axelar,
it's a whole
Axelar wrapped Bitcoin. So it comes over the wrapped Bitcoin bridge. You mentioned native Bitcoin live on Cosmos. Are you talking about Nomic or which project?
Yep, I'm talking about Nomic.
Cool.
Super excited. So I was a big Ren a BTC fan. I met the team. I got to work with them. I did I did some of the onboarding for scaling with them before they were acquired by Alameda, and I've been like, it's such an obvious play that Cosmos is the right place for a product like Ren BTC. And so I'm super excited. That's why I'm excited for a vision of Lavana where you just come, you get a real, SegWit Bitcoin deposit address, maybe even a Lightning deposit address. You just deposit your Bitcoin. It's non-custodial. It's backed. It's recoverable by your Gmail wallet. It's nobody can mess with it.
These are just more user acquisition channels.
Yeah, and then you can
give you more user acquisition.
Yeah,
nice, awesome. 60+% APY on Bitcoin right now, while supplies last and while fees keep going up. Jonathan, thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to chatting again later. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you.